Yes. Happy New Year, by the way.
Thank you.
We have some breaking news. You may not be aware of this, but it looks like Canon has blocked the DOJ from releasing the Smith's report until further court proceedings. Get your thoughts on that.
Wow, that's a big story.
Yeah.
So, if I get it right, the fake witch hunt started by the DOJ, having to do with books and records, and Biden had many more, and he wasn't protected by the Presidential Records Act, I was. But all of that fake stuff that took the lives of people, I mean, literally destroyed people. People are destroyed because of what they did. Destroyed. But we got to be president. But Biden did it for 40 years. He did it when he was a senator. That was illegal. And they ruled it was illegal. How about that? They said, it's illegal, but he's unfit to stand trial. So he can stand and be president of the United States, but the prosecutor found that he's unfit for trial. I was going to use that as a major talking point, but I never got to use it because all of a sudden I had a new candidate who was also sort of unfit to stand trial, right?
Oh, that's nice. A little Trump humor to start the show off today. How's everybody doing? Hopefully you're all doing well today. This very nice day here in the middle of January. Yeah, today's a little bit of a departure from the last couple episodes, or at least actually more than that. Last few episodes, we've had some kind of bigger topics to talk about that have been essentially encompassing the whole show. And today there's not one big thing, there's a bunch of smaller things though, and they're all really overall more or less good things. One of them's not necessarily a good thing, but it's kind of at least the sort of natural instincts of people these days, it reflects a good thing, I think, in the end. So but we'll go over all that in just a minute because, man, it's been interesting couple of days. Especially, I have to say, once again, I closed the show out with this yesterday, but I didn't even have the updated numbers. I checked them out yesterday, and oh my gosh, thank you guys. I hope that it's because people have been spreading the word, or maybe I'm just popping up in people's recommended somewhere in some places. I don't know, but regardless of whatever it is, I've been having some audience improvement by a very large margin. And this is not saying much. Once again, I know I'm a tiny, tiny, tiny channel in the grand scheme of things at this point. But as I've said many times before, my goal is to grow the channel to a point that I actually can see some kind of financial return eventually. I'm not shy about admitting that. I think you should be honest about those kind of things because then people know what they're getting into, and you know, I've devoted the financial resources and the time resources and all of the things I've always devoted to my most important interest to the endeavor for it. So I put my money where my mouth is, my time where my mouth is, energy, all that stuff. But I know the process. I know how dedicated you have to be, so I'm not expecting it to be coming anytime soon. But I was surprised at the sudden jump up and just how quick it was and how sudden it was for me, because coming from past experiences of doing, I don't know if I've actually explained like what it was I did before. I only did gaming channels before, and in those cases, I found out kind of after a longer process, but always the same thing, that unless you either already have a name in some kind of other social media area where you're kind of a recognizable figure already, or you're extremely world tournament level skill, like especially for me being into fighting games in particular, I always liked Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, Japanese anime style fighting games. Of course, I'm a big weeb, I know, but it's fine. But anyway, that was the kind of stuff I was mostly into. Second channel I did was couple of friends and me were always playing fighting games together. So we just decided to start a channel based on what we were always doing anyway, which was playing fighting games in open lobbies, and sometimes people would join and sometimes it'd just be us, but whatever. But it was either you had to be like, world class, high tier, like, well, top tier kind of talented level, or you had to already have a name. Or one more key, I know some people are going to like this, but unfortunately it's just the truth. You had to be a good-looking, well, somewhat attractive even female that's willing to show some skin, and in which case you're definitely in there in the gamer crowd. Even though, like I've seen some of the most ridiculous shit you can imagine from girls like that try to stream game stuff. It's just pathetic. It's actually sad to see, but simps throw tons and tons of cash at those dumb broads. So whatever. I hate it. I can't. I'm sorry. That's just reality. Anyway, but no, I quickly learned those lessons after a while, and it was kind of a fun hobby. But the idea of doing a show like this came out actually amongst my friends in that same circle after a while, and it took a long time to get started, but here I am. But I think that ultimately, if I was ever going to have a shot at doing something where I was going to see some sort of some type of success at all in any sense of the word, it would be in something like that as opposed to doing game-related videos. And the other thing is that, and the main reason I bring it up is because I didn't see anything close to this kind of return on my videos and anything I made. No matter what I did, I tried all kinds of different things, different ideas for things to do weekly, things to do monthly, things to do that were highly edited, things to do that were just only live and raw, and that's it. And like I tried tons of stuff, but the numbers kind of just plateaued, and they just stayed at a fairly low count, and that was where it was going to stay. So I kind of it wasn't really that entirely got me kind of moving away from it. It also was just a circumstance of moving over to being predominantly PC gaming and not on console much anymore. And now I'm almost exclusively on PC, except for Nintendo Switch. Everybody's got to have a Nintendo Switch, but if you play games, you got to have a Nintendo Switch. But anyway, just the point is that it definitely seems like a totally different. And that's why it's so amazing to me, to my numbers, and when I see after a stream, and especially it seems like a lot of people do watch the show after it's already been broadcast, which is that's fine. I no problems there. Whenever it's convenient for anybody, I don't mind whenever you watch the show. I love the interaction, but if there's no interaction, that's fine too. I just like to see that people are checking out the show, and so I hope you guys have been enjoying it. I haven't seen any negative feedback, but I haven't really heard any feedback much at all, period. So as I've said before, I'm not some little whiny baby. I can handle it. I'm a big boy. I can handle some critique and criticism, and I'm not the kind of guy to go blocking people like a little bitch if somebody says something negative. I'm not like that. As I've said before, that life ruination type of shit, that's where I kind of have an issue, obviously, just like everybody, I think, does that has any kind of morality or anything. But I don't want to get on a soapbox about that. I just was going to say that, thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the views. Thanks for checking out the show. And I'm very, very, very much appreciative. I can't say thank you guys enough. And if you guys have been spreading the word, I really appreciate it. If not, I would appreciate it if you do. As I say a million times, I'll say it one more time here. I'm not the kind of person to tell you to smash the like button and like the video and subscribe for more of this amazing content. But I will say, of course, that if you do like what you see, I would very much appreciate subscriptions and a like if you enjoy the content and want to see more. And if you do have any suggestions or something you would like to see, please let me know. So, because I talk to you guys like adults and not like you're teenagers in high school. So, anyway, even though you might be teenagers in high school, I'll still treat you like an adult. Whatever. I don't know if you should be watching this show. I am kind of unfiltered, but I kind of swear like a sailor, but that's all right. I think anybody that is going to watch this show is probably going to have to be used to that, but because even if I wanted to, it would be very hard. Anyway, but let's get to the video. So let's start with, should we start with, well, let's just start with the most, we'll start with the most simple sort of, and non-American news, but kind of American news because, excuse me. So Justin Trudeau has announced that he is not going to be running for another term as Prime Minister of Canada. And that's definitely good news to anybody who has been paying attention to what's been going on in Canada. The housing market has become virtually pretty much completely unrealistic for anyone that's not already making, a substantially large amount of money. They've had so many they have carbon taxes. They have taxes for, different types of, what would it be called? Like what we would call like the Bureau of Land Management here in the United States for the regulations for land and who gets to build what on it and the regulations for how to run that type of property and yada, yada, yada. And trees that like, forestation, and things like all these things. And Canada has so many rich natural resource locations and they aren't tapping into them, similarly to what's going on here. But in their case, it's even worse because they not only have that, but they had a pretty open tyrant as a prime minister. And I don't say that lightly. I say that after the trucker convoy and the results that came out of that. I say that because of their COVID responses and that was what even actually more or less was the main cause for the convoy to begin with. The way they handled the whole situation, sort of blamed it. It was the dumbest explanation ever. If you guys actually heard the final conclusion that the media in Canada, the media is all, the main media is all state run. So it's just government. It's just government talking points and that's it. So you don't get any kind of news that's, even trying to be unbiased. The problem is that Canadians for a long time didn't really have a media that, even though that was the case, it wasn't like they were trying to spread an agenda or anything specific, and it wasn't really as partisan as it can be in the United States. However, with the rise of the woke and totalitarian left, they definitely had a very strong hold on Canada, and with that came the type of media that you can't really take as honest on its face, except if that's the way you've lived your entire life, with the media being that way, and it wasn't something that was untrustworthy, and it wasn't something that you couldn't rely on for pretty accurate information, and then all of a sudden it is, and you don't know what to do. Well, then you're left with very limited options except to believe what you potentially hear from the people you have previously trusted. And their excuse, this should have been something obvious for every Canadian, but because it would have made so little sense, especially after what's been going on lately. But the ultimate the conclusion that they came to was that it was the influence of MAGA Republicans in the United States to destabilize Canada and to make them cave to the same type of Republican-style government policies that we have here. The dumbest possible, first of all, there'd be no motivation whatsoever, other than maybe to trade with Canada more, but that was also around the time after Trump had already sort of shown that we have vast natural resource reserves in our own country that we could be essentially, what's the word I'm thinking of? Well, we basically could be producing enough in the United States to not only become energy independent, but energy dominant, and essentially become a net exporter of natural gas and of petroleum-based fuel. And so it wasn't as much of an issue because Canada has always been one of our biggest trading partners, if not our biggest trading partner. And it's like, in large part because of, once again, because of the sort of things that they have there that just are naturally, luckily available for, well, kind of, except for when Trudeau made it impossible to extract any of them. But, yeah, the whole green agenda, the whole DEI agenda. I mean, he started out his whole run as prime minister by stating specifically he was appointing 50% of his cabinet as women, which right away says, okay, so right off the bat, half of your cabinet you're saying is going to be not almost guaranteed to not be the people that are best for the job, because you're only selecting from a specific talent pool of people based on characteristics that have nothing to do with the job that they're being hired for. And so, yeah, it's just like there's always virtue signaling, always passing the buck, never taking blame, always smooth talker, very like I personally can't stand the way he speaks. He speaks like seriously like a snake oil salesman. Like, it's so creepy in so many ways, just how he talks to the media and how he talks to reporters and just to the cameras in general. It is such a he just looks like he's putting on a performance. And I know he used to do a little bit of acting, including doing some blackface, but yeah, he's always got this tone that sounds so like basically almost like he's trying to cater to your gosh, I can't think of a good way to describe it. It's always this gentle and delicate way of talking about things, and the way he enunciates the words he's speaking to sound really soft and delicate and kind and compassionate, and it's so it's weird, but he's the perfect definition of a politician. And so anyway, there is a little bit of a downside, but I'll tell you that after. I'm just going to bring the video up just so you can see his actual the way he addresses the whole thing, and because I did save this, and I figured we'd go over this today a little bit. So and like I said, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but oh, hang on, see, right, and oh, wait, I think I know. Hold on a second. I think my shirt might be too green. Hold on. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Hold on. I forgot about that. I got this for Christmas. I got this for Christmas, and I forgot I was wearing it, but I pulled that up. It didn't show up so bad, except for when there was this white screen behind it. But now I need to put something on. It's not that cold, but it's a little bit of a chill. So I'll just put my. Oh, this one's fine, I think. How's this one? Oh, this one's showing up too. Okay, I think I'll have to wear. Oh, you know what? I saw my black one just a second ago. That'll work. Because we're back in black. Okay, here. There we go. Sorry to do this on midstream. I'm going to do it anyway, though. It's wrinkly, but who cares? Okay. All right. Yeah, that did it. Oh, wait, hold on. I got this backwards now. Oh, no, it's just, yeah, there we go. All right, sweet. All right. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I actually got 2 green shirts. One of them's much more obvious, like a forest green, and so that one would have probably been more obvious to me when I was starting to stream. But that one kind of looks a little bit more brownish in a lot of ways, but there's definitely some green in the pattern. So yeah, it just came through too much. So yeah, that did it. Okay, all right. So yeah, now we'll get to this clip. Sorry about that. So here we go. Let me pull this up, and then we'll yeah. All right, and here we go. Like I said, be prepared. This guy's very creepy, but yeah.
It is the driving force of every single day I have the privilege of serving in this office. That is why, since 2015, I've fought for this country, for you, to strengthen and grow the middle class. Why we rallied to support each other through the pandemic, to advance reconciliation, to defend free trade on this continent,
I love how much
to stand strong
I'm
with
sorry, hold on.
Ukraine and our democracy.
Oh no, Ukraine! Don't get started. I love how whenever you hear someone on the left or somebody liberal or somebody just that's got more of a liberal sort of political view, they always talk about the pandemic in this sort of longing way, like they missed the good old days when we could keep people locked up in their homes and we didn't have to, worry about them being out and going to businesses. We didn't have to worry about that pesky little, free market thing and all that stuff. It was so much a mess. I miss those days, and everybody else in the world's like, God, thank God those days are over. But except for the left, they just always sound so much like they just wish they could just go back to that time. If they just had one more try, they could do it. They could take over the whole government. Anyway, it just came off to me when he said that, like he just really missed the pandemic.
And to fight climate change and get our economy ready for the future. We are at a critical moment in the world. Mes chers Canadiens, à chaque matin, je me suis réveillé en tant que Premier ministre, inspiré par la résilience, la générosité et la détermination qui nous caractérisent si bien en tant que Canadiens. C'est ce qui me motive à chaque jour où j'ai le privilège de servir dans ce poste. C'est pourquoi, depuis 2015, je me suis battu pour ce pays, pour vous, pour renforcer la classe moyenne. Pourquoi nous nous sommes mobilisés en tant que Canadiens pour se soutenir les uns les autres pendant la pandémie, pour faire progresser la réconciliation, pour défendre le libre-échange sur notre continent, pour notre soutien inébranlable de l'Ukraine, de la démocratie, et pour lutter contre les changements climatiques et préparer l'économie de l'avenir. Nous traversons vraiment un moment critique dans le monde.
We pretty much just kidnap people and put them in jigsaw
Friends,
tracks.
as you all know,
And speak
I'm a
to them.
fighter. Every bone in my body has always told me to fight because I care deeply about Canadians, I care deeply about this country, and I will always be motivated by what is in the best interest of Canadians. And the fact is, despite best efforts to work through it, Parliament has been paralyzed for months after what has been the longest session of a minority parliament in Canadian history.
Oh, I've been watching those.
That's why this morning I advised the Governor General that we need a new session of Parliament. She has granted this request, and the House will now be prorogued until March 24th. Over the holidays, I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future. Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
Well, I have to say this much. At least, he didn't do it via, newspaper articles that, God knows if they were written by him or not. Like somebody else I can think of. One thing that is a little devious about that sort of selfless attempt to appear like he's doing this on behalf of Canada is that I had heard earlier today while I was watching the Charlie Kirk show, he was talking to Ezra Klein, guy from that owns Rebel Media. They're mostly out of Canada. And God damn. Jeez, come on. Okay, I think I'm good. Oh, here. Damn. Yeah, okay, now I'm better. Sorry. Anyway, he said that what he was doing was kind of a sleight of hand trick because normally they would be potentially open to have a vote of no confidence in their sort of version of the parliament, which is kind of their version of a congressional system. What they would do is they would hold a vote of no confidence, and if there was enough of a vote that said they voted no confidence for the prime minister, he would be forced to resign at that specific point. But because he's set a date for resignation and set it for March, he's giving himself a buffer period to, much like what Biden's doing now by things like, releasing expediting 37 death row inmates to have their sentences turned to life instead of the death penalty. Like he's doing now to try to, what was the last one he did? This one was crazy. It had, what was it? It had something to do with the border or, so I can't remember what it was, but it was obviously a dig at attempting to make sure that Trump was going to have a harder time. But the thing is, it was just an executive order, and Trump can roll those back just like Biden rolled those back when he got into office. So I don't know, how much it's really going to slow him down, but I doubt it's going to make that much of a difference. But I don't know, obviously, that much about Canadian politics, so I don't know what he intends to do, but I think that more than anything, he's the kind of guy who is an obvious, it just permeates off of him entirely so intensely that it's like, it's just obvious to anyone watching. This guy is a total narcissist, like an incredibly fucking massive ego narcissist. So, whatever it is, you can damn sure bet it's going to be something that he's going to be doing to try to make his name and his legacy be remembered for something positive. Although, I don't think for most people, at least in the United States, and I would imagine a lot of people in Canada as well, it's going to be anything particularly good. But the other thing that is just kind of concerning there is because it's kind of funny. This did seem to coincide a lot with his visit to Mar-a-Lago, his visits with Trump, and the whole joke with making Canada the 51st state and making him the governor. And it's something that you can imagine your average person would just kind of like. For me, I just thought, that's kind of funny. But I can imagine a guy like this would have been like trying to portray outward the same sort of emotion. Like, yeah, it's kind of funny. But inside he would be boiling with anger. Like, how dare you? How dare you? Who are you to suggest that I, the Prime Minister of Canada, who comes from a family with rich history in Canadian politics, deserves to such a lowly position as a governor of a state? It'd be like, I think Americans would be very, very angry if he was. But the point is that, he got that kind of mentality to where he would definitely be not too amused by that deep down. That would be something that would be a jab that he would just have to. He'd just have to swallow it. He'd just have to, swallow it, hold himself back, and just, make sure he doesn't have an outburst. But, and I've clearly been seeing so many instances everybody's expecting at this point that Pierre Poilievre, if you haven't heard of him, I very highly suggest looking him up. I might show some clips of him in the near future based on this situation. But I've watched the guy. He's a beast. He's a beast. He's been debating back and forth with Trudeau in Parliament for months now, at least almost a year, I would imagine, at this point. And the guy just smokes him. He just smokes him on every... they always have a sort of back and forth in the system, and they'll give a short, minute-long rebuttal, and then they'll go back and forth that way for a while, actually. I don't know exactly how it works or anything, but I do know that it's obviously meant to be able to hold a debate. But anytime there's any kind of retort to Pierre Poilievre, he just notes one of two things. Usually it's either the fact that Canadians can't buy houses, as I alluded to earlier, or that more Canadians now have had to stand in line for food lines than ever before in Canadian history, and it's because of the particularly the carbon tax that's killing everyday working families like crazy, but also all the incredible taxes, because just like in the United States, they were spending well beyond their means in Canada for a long time now, and basically ruining their own economy and trying to find ways to continue taxing people in every class more and more and more. And it's just, obviously it devastates the lowest income people and people on fixed incomes the most and the hardest. So it's an obvious outcome, but once again, leftists can't really predict exactly why they do what they do, other than some sort of twisted worldview where they're at the center of everything. They're going to solve all the problems. And you can always tell someone, this is a really big rule that I always kind of try to remind myself and remind other people of, that when you have somebody that goes up and always tries to present the solutions to problems as if they're always these simple, just obvious and simple ideas to these very complex problems, you're dealing with a liar. Complex problems always require complex solutions. There's just no two ways about it. It's not something that you can avoid. It's always something that's going to happen. You can do a temporary quick fix to something that's a serious problem, but you're going to have to use that time to come up with something a lot more complex and comprehensive, because a quick fix is going to be nothing more than just a temporary measure to help you mitigate some of the potential problems that will be arising from that. By contrast, the way to actually deal with them in terms of solving those issues is you have to understand the problem completely. which means understanding a complex system, and then it means number two, creating another complex system to be able to counteract the system that is working against you, which means that it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and almost always a group of people working together towards a common goal. And that's where usually things in the modern age fall apart because of how partisan everything has become. But that also is kind of like, I've heard this statement lately, and I totally agree with it. A lot of people are always saying the word bipartisan now as if that just automatically means that's something good. And bipartisan doesn't necessarily mean good. I think I mentioned this actually recently because they touted the quote-unquote bipartisan border bill. That was one of the most terrible immigration bills that's ever come out of the Senate. And yet it was bipartisan. And it's just like, that's supposed to mean that I'll just forget about everything else. It's bipartisan, so that's fine. And then the reason they like that word so much is that it's always the same thing with the left in this country, for sure, that if they can get Republican fingerprints on it, they know that they don't have to take the brunt of all of the blame. They can remind everyone that it is equally divided amongst both sides, when in actuality, in many cases, it has to do with the manipulative way that this bipartisan agreement was reached, and the fact that just from the beginning, especially holding a majority, that they're going to be doing things to make sure that they get the most important things they want, and the most important things that usually the Republicans want that they desperately don't want are things that they're pretty much guaranteed to not have in, but they can still claim it's bipartisan. And that's just a fraud. It's just a charade, and it just is a way to, it's just political games. That's it. So the other way, Washington, D.C. is broken, and I would assume it's very similar in Canada, but once again, I don't know the system well enough to know that for sure. So anyway, should I move on to... Now, I think I'll save the funniest story for last, because this is mostly about the topic of the video today. So, this kind of came out of nowhere for me. I didn't see this coming. Now, I have seen a few things that were signs of a good direction. I just didn't expect this. This was really big. Mark Zuckerberg has come out and announced big changes with Meta, all the platforms that are under Meta's umbrella, including Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and a handful of other things. But anyway, three very large social media platforms, at least. One that is, not the biggest, but is a contender for, at least in the top three. In the top three for sure. Facebook is like, one of those sorts of social media sorts of. I'm sorry. So it's one of the social media platforms that almost everybody has, and even if they don't really use it that much, they have it. I will say I probably still, because I could never figure out. I'll admit I could never figure out how in the hell to get it closed completely. I tried to close it and it just never ended up closing. It says have no activity for X amount of time and it will go offline. Well, I did, and it was still up. So I don't know how that ended up happening. But anyway, the point being that these are some big social network platforms. And Mark Zuckerberg, famously has been at the sort of, maybe not at the center, but close to the center at least. He's been one of the key figures in a lot of the election-related and political-related shenanigans that have been going on for the last few years. The most infamous and most damaging, most definitely as of which I can think of, is the 2000 election Zuckerbucks and Dropboxes thing, where he was spending millions of dollars for the Democrat Party for the Get Out the Vote campaign, and was coming up with all these ways to encourage younger voting and put drop boxes in areas where they would need them. Sadly, unfortunately, it seemed like the cameras that were supposed to be running in all those areas, those weren't all up to compliance, which is kind of suspicious also. But putting that all aside and putting aside the differences, what I think it boils down to more than anything is that he's seeing the success that X is having under Elon in terms of the fact that, number one, it's got a very strong and healthy debate that is happening on X consistently. They've been attracting some of the biggest name creators on YouTube, on Rumble, on fucking TikTok, on tons of different media hosting programs or websites, and they've been able to really expand their content creator base on X by having that open. They also had the community notes feature added. They don't rely on the ridiculous, fact checkers, which this is going to be one of the bigger talking points of the video. I'll let him go into it first because I got the full clip of everything he has to say. And this one is actually pretty crazy. And I'll tell you one thing because I'll just mention to prelude something coming up after this. I was watching some commentary by a channel on YouTube, Black Conservative Perspective, which I talked about yesterday even. Great channel. I very highly recommend checking him out. I actually have a clip from him today that I'm going to be using in the next segment, but he mentioned this as well, and I was thinking the same thing. First of all, when you see him in this clip, when you see Mark Zuckerberg, he looks very different. And if you don't know, Mark Zuckerberg has been training in MMA. He's been getting involved in some more physical activity. He's been getting outside of California tech land and getting involved in some real, real physically intense and competitive endeavors. And I said it to myself before I heard the guy for the channel. His name's Greg Foreman. I almost always get him confused with George Foreman, but no, he doesn't look anything like him. Just the name is always something that makes me kind of make sure it's Greg, right? Not George. Yeah, that's right, Greg Foreman. But anyway, he mentioned this not more than 15 seconds after I had the idea pop in my head. Man, it's got to be that testosterone, man. It's got to be that. It's got to be that manliness that's starting to flow in his blood now. It's got to be that. And he said almost the exact same thing. It was great that he was thinking the same thing I was. But yeah, in all honesty, I really do think it is because I can tell you the left is not happy about this. I saw a number of people that were very angry, and I find it so ironic and at the same time so pathetic that people would be that angry about this because, well, let's go into what is actually going on, and then I'll explain why I think it's so pathetic, and you probably will kind of understand why without me having to tell you. But nevertheless, I still want to go over it. So let me pull this one up, and then we'll check this one out. Where did it go? Oh, that's right. This is the one that I didn't... that's right. I didn't have to even edit this clip because it was... I don't know what that sound is. I don't know why... I mean, I'm not disconnecting or connecting anything, so I don't know why that keeps happening. Oh, well. Anyway, this is the only one I didn't have to trim because it's pretty much all just one straight clip. It's about 5 minutes, but 5 minutes 17 seconds, but it's all pretty much one coherent video. So we'll go ahead and get this started, and we'll discuss it on the other. Well, we may interject as per usual, but yeah, we'll talk about it on the other side. Let me get. Okay, there we go. So, and right away, once again, as you can see, look at Mark. Look at Mark. He's looking like he's got some muscle definition growing there. Looks like he's got some upper body strength now. He looks like he's really been working hard at it. I know that his MMA training has actually been pretty intense. He hasn't been shortcutting and just half-assing it. He's been actually genuinely pretty involved in staying up to date. And this comes right after the whole boxing fiasco with Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Which was incredible. I if you had told me, what the hell is that? Jeez. Anyway, I mean, if you had told me only just a few short years ago that Jake Paul would be fighting Mike Tyson in a boxing match and win. Like, I don't care how old Mike Tyson is. Just the fact that you would suggest that at all would be like, what? Come on, are you kidding me? An actual boxing match. But lo and behold, and of course, Mike Tyson's well beyond his prime. But God, he was if you ever watch any of those fights with Mike Tyson in the 80s and 90s, my God, jeez, I've seen some of those. His uppercut, oh my God, that uppercut is devastating. It's like the way that he knocked those guys out, man. That was like it's some of them are hard to watch, man. You could just lights out immediately. But like I said, I'm sure he doesn't have that same sort of punching power anymore. I'm sure he doesn't have the same kind of stamina he did before. I'm sure that because I'm pretty sure it's that Mike Tyson was more of a sort of not exactly in the same way because it's not MMA, but he's not like fast twitch muscle fiber type. Or he is like more like a fast twitch muscle fiber type of fighter where it's like one big, fast, dynamic shot that is going to be devastating as opposed to this more strategic, whittling people down with unexpected openings and things like that. And of course, you take those occasionally, but because of how many times. A good example is Conor McGregor. His left hand was what won him almost every fight he won because he would always stand at his stance was unusual and his reach was very good. And for his weight divisions, he punched very, very strong because he was. If you catch somebody at the end of I'm not a huge MMA guy, but I know the sort of the basics. I've been into it enough to know to learn kind of the ropes for the most important things to know about MMA fighting and in particular when it comes to the boxing and kickboxing. Stephen Thompson, Wonder Boy, oh man, that dude for kickboxing, that guy's amazing. It was a shame he didn't ever get to win a title, but as far as maybe he did at later, I don't know. I don't think he did though. But man, he had 2 title fights against Tyron Woodley, and first one was a draw. The second one, Woodley beat him. But man, Wonder Boy was he was a hell of a fucking kickboxer. But anyway, to the point before, Conor was just exceptionally good. at being able to catch people at the very end of the reach of his punch, where it had the maximum amount of force. Because, like, you know, when you're taking a shot at somebody and you catch them, you know, part of the way through your swing, it just stops and you lose a good amount of the power. If you're trying to aim like here and then it's moved up to here, you're losing this much area where your fist is going to be able to, you know, gain that extra momentum to go the rest of the way, and with the shoulder to put the force behind it. It's just, so if you can catch someone right at the end of the punch, right where it's at its maximum amount of force, and you can catch him in the chin, oh man, that's lights out. And that was probably one of the best examples was, well, definitely one of the best examples was the Jose Aldo fight. It was super short, but it was just that one dynamic shot. Boom. It was over. His fight with Eddie Alvarez, though, I think it was probably his best fight. The fights with Diaz, the thing about Diaz was that he's got a great boxing game as well as the jiu-jitsu game. So he could work ground, and he also can work on his feet very well. He works kicks very well. But if you ever watch the way his arms, I can only describe him as his punches. It's like his arms become snakes. It's the way he snaps them. It's just like, it's really weird. Nick did that too. He had a similar way of throwing punches, but Nate was always just on point for that kind of punch. And so, like, but Nate was not a fast twitch muscle fiber fighter. He was swimming in, extremely long marathon swimming events and doing extremely long runs and things. So he was building up the cardio to be able to have long, drawn out fights. Whereas Conor is a fast twitch muscle fiber fighter. That's why he would kind of gas out in the third round almost always, because he was, it's a balancing act. You want to try to finish him in the first or second round as quick as you can so that you don't have to go into the later rounds. And the only time I can remember that he made it, and I think the only time he ever did make it to the last round in a 5-round fight was against was the second Diaz fight, and that fight really was something that could go either way. I see it going either way in both cases. I really wish there could have been a third one, because they really could have had an amazing gate, and possibly the fight to close the trilogy. It would have been amazing, but by that point, Conor was just too big a name. And Nate, honestly, I mean, it's not like Nate was just dying to have the fight either. Both the Diaz brothers are they live with such modest means. They're incredible people. Like, the way they live their lives is amazing for the stardom they had. I mean, they're internationally known for their fighting ability, and they really were, neither of them ever held a major title or anything in UFC, but I know Nick for sure was champion of I think it was Pride Fighting. I think it was Pride champion, but I don't remember for sure. But either way, I know there were some other titles that were won by them in different divisions, but not at UFC. But it was just a shame. But at the same time, they weren't complaining, because they were there just to fight, and they had a very great match. They had some amazing fights, but never really. I don't know why I'm on this subject for so long, just because Mark Zuckerberg is looking good. But it's interesting just seeing that whole thing play out. And I've never talked about MMA on the show before. I have. I'm not as engaged as I was a few years ago, but I still try to catch it from time to time, especially to know some of the bigger things that are going on. Like I remember in the women's division when Chris Cyborg was coming up and just decimating everybody in that side. And the problem was that she was fighting in the featherweight division, which not a lot of women could fight in the featherweight division, which that's 145. Yeah. And they mostly were a bantamweight, which is 135, or I don't know how well the flyweight division did there, because in the men's flyweight division, gosh, what's his name? Mighty Mouse. Gosh, I can't remember his name. Remember his nickname. I don't remember his name. That's kind of sad. But that guy was champion of that division for a long time, and total gaming nerd at the same time as being one of the. He was pound for pound best fighter actually in the world for a decent chunk of time. He was listed for MMA as the pound for pound best fighter. I can't believe I can't remember his name. I only remember Mighty Mouse. But anyway, let's get on to this clip. I'm sorry. I'll stop going on about MMA now. All right.
That's something important today, because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X.
Yay! Jeez. I'm sorry, I have to interject it just this one time. Just that alone, that's why I named the episode the way I did. The moderators and the fact checkers, I swear, I'm so fucking tired of hearing about the fact checker said that this was inaccurate. Well, we've looked for the fact checker. I don't know when that became so commonplace and this thing that people used as this catch-all defense for some shit, ridiculous position. But I'm so tired of the fucking fact checkers being referenced all the time. So the fact that he's saying this now and whittling it down and going to the community notes like they have on X, which have been working fine since X started. Since X was the actual product of Elon Musk taking over Twitter. That's been working great, and it's been far more. To be honest, to be checked by your peers or your fellow users, essentially, is, I think, far, far, far more of a way to deter people from putting up things that they either know they either know that they're saying bullshit, or they know, or they don't know, but they're being so completely what's the word, negligent with what they're saying, and they're saying something that really is going to be, some sort of false statistic, or some sort of information is completely bogus, or whatever it might be. Just the idea that you don't have this group of people that are selected as the reliable, usually journalists, that it's quote unquote journalists, that are going to fact check, meaning they're going to hold it up against their ideological worldview and see if it is true or false or not, and or true or false, and that's just that's, once again, you're not fact checking. You're ideologically checking to see if that works for your dogmatic modern zealotry in your current religion of wokeism. It's a ridiculous way of describing something that is meant for the opposite reason it is being described as. Like it's not, to call that fact checking is such in and of itself needing of a fact check, because they are not fact checkers. But anyway, like, for example, there's no evidence to suggest that the Hunter Biden laptop was actually belonged to Hunter Biden, like shit like that, or like there are no reports that Joe Biden's cognitive state is been in decline. Come on now, geez, who are you fooling with this shit? It's so stupid. It's just, yeah. Or a real rich one, like scientists have agreed that wearing masks reduce the risk of COVID-19, the spread of COVID-19. It's like, that's their fact check. Yeah, man, what a fact check. But no, the community notes thing is a great idea. It's a fantastic alternative, and it's a great way to keep people, because in general, I think for the most part, when you have that big of an audience to a lot of people that are stating something that is going to be relevant to a large group of people, and somebody else knows for a fact that it's not true or it is true, and somebody posted otherwise, and can have the data to back it up, and that's, hey, that's exactly how it should be. And then if that's wrong, there's going to be overwhelmingly more ammunition for the people that actually have the truth on their side, pure and simple. So whether or not it's done by mistake or whether it's done out of some sort of agenda to accomplish something, this is the kind of way that you do it, not by partisan media individuals that are hired to fact check when they have more biases than fucking leftist senator, probably. Who knows? Anyway, I just had to get that part out because I love that. That's one of the biggest and best announcements so far. But well, actually, I take that back. There's a lot of big and good announcements in this one, so we'll keep going. We'll get to the other ones.
Starting in the U.S. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
For Mark Zuckerberg.
So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far.
Inevitably.
So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content.
And that means that we're going to be holding people to the American standard of speech. And that's what I am very pleased to hear about this, because it's what a lot of people in Congress on the right have been just begging for years now was that why the hell is a U.S. company that holds a social media platform where we have free speech and there's only very specific carve-outs for what you cannot say, and that is something that can lead to you being in violation of the law and being subject to your speech being censored, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. But the point is that there's very narrow exceptions in the First Amendment, very, very few and narrow exceptions, and they all are around a call to action, which usually involves violence, or a call to action involving some other illegal activity. Now, it's where people. Now, let me just dispel this right now because I hate this shit. I hate especially when leftists try to use this. Well, you can't scream fire in that crowded theater. First of all, yes, you can. And there's actually a time when that is actually very important, and you really should do that. And it's when the theater really is on fire. They always forget to include that part because the problem isn't the fact that you're yelling fire in a crowded theater. It's more nuanced than that. First of all, let me point this out. The reason that even became a cliche in the first place is because, if you've ever seen Inglourious Bastards, you probably kind of know this, but 35 millimeter film was extremely flammable. So if any of the film reels, up in the boxes where they keep all the films and the projector, if anything caught fire up there, oh man, you'd have a fire spreading very fast that would be very dangerous. And that was why that's the reason that whole thing was originally used as the example, because of the danger that it was involved with having an open flame around 35 millimeter film. And at the time, in most places, it wasn't illegal to smoke indoors and things like that. There's a lot more reason to be concerned. Nowadays, not nearly as much concern. 35 millimeter film isn't really used anymore for filmmaking and or for projecting, for that matter. And it's just so the example is a decent example, but it's something that has to make sense in the context, and it's so outdated now that it's just muddled. So the point of that statement isn't that you yelled fire in a crowded theater. The point is that you are doing it in a way that you would be reasonably expected to know that that action would cause harm to people, despite you not even causing the harm, because it would be inevitable it would be presumed that you would realize it would be likely in an event where people are panicked that there could be damage to people. They could be trampled. They could be smashed, pushed to the side. They could be, they could get into fights. I mean, there's all kinds of things people do when they're panicked and irrational. And, so but the issue really at the core of it, once again, is it's a call to action. And when you yell fire, if the theater is not on fire and it's crowded and you yell fire, it's the action being called that, hey, fire, everybody, you better run. That's the sort of basically the idea of what you're saying. And if there's no fire, then you're potentially, if there is a fire, you're potentially doing it to help people, obviously. If that would be something reasonable, where if there was a fire, hopefully you could escape in an orderly fashion. But if you don't do anything, it might be too late and everyone would end up getting killed. So it's reasonable to do it in that situation. It's not reasonable to do it in a situation where there isn't one, because you could cause unnecessary death or extreme damage or harm. And it's always around. So, here's another example. We'll use this one. This one's a little bit more, a little bit more cut and dry. if I was to say that Kamala Harris, she's a no good, dumb politician. Somebody should beat the hell out of her. That's protected. That's not a call to action. That's not suggesting anything specific. It's just saying someone should, or I hope she gets in a car accident. That's all. These are both. I mean, they're both terrible things to say, but they're not against the law. Now, if I was to say instead that I want everyone here today who agrees with me about Kamala Harris being a terrible candidate to all go and find her and punch her in the face. That would be a call to action. That would not be protected. Or if you were to say, in the second example, if you guys are driving around, you see Kamala Harris, hit her with your car. That would be another one that wouldn't be protected because it's a call to action. It's a call to tell people that they should do something, or you want them to do something, or that's the part that's illegal. It's not the sentiment and it's not the speech itself. It's the act of attempting to influence someone else to do something illegal based on information that they're getting from somebody that is in a position of somewhat of authority, at least in that given moment, based on the idea that someone might have information that you don't, or might be able to present an option that you otherwise wouldn't. But anyway, the point is just that's what we're talking about here when you're talking about the exceptions to free speech. So, and that's another reason why the left was so quick to say, well, words are words are violence, and it's like, no, words aren't violence. Criticism isn't violence. It's not. It's like the thing with. I'll just say this. It's like with almost everything else the left does. There's another ulterior motive almost always behind it. It's not just to cater to someone's sensitive fifis. It's to present something that is kind of a way to use constitutional laws and American the American Constitution and laws against people who would know what the limits are and what they aren't, and to twist them in a way that makes no sense and is so confusing and abstract that it can confuse people into believing that they're not doing anything wrong if they were to suggest that, and that's why the rhetoric, about you could argue that the rhetoric that kept saying Trump is Hitler is another example of why he was nearly assassinated. I mean, it's the same sort of thing there. When you constantly say something about an individual that is running for a political office, especially in the highest office in the country, and you equate that person to the same individual who's recognized across the world as one of the worst dictators in history, if not the worst dictator in history, well, what do you think that's going to cause the population to do? If you start bringing up terms and evoking moments in history or events in history that were some of the darkest times in the history of mankind, like Trump is going to set up camps for people that are that he doesn't like or that oppose him, and then it's like the suggestion is that once again he's going to be like Hitler and he's going to set up camps and they're going to be concentration camps. And the idea is never just to stop at their initial point. It's to keep pushing it further, which is why you'll always see leftists will never back off of a point. They only will double down over and over and over again. And that's why their rhetoric is so dangerous, is because they never are content or they never were. I just watched this video the other day, and this was from a while ago, but it was in the early days when people were learning about how absolutely just venomous the left was, when people would make an apology for the perceived racism of a company or something, and they would put out an apology saying that, you know, they fired the guy who was responsible and all this and that, and then more people would chime in saying, well, thank you, but, you know, we just don't believe you. There's no way you couldn't have known this guy wasn't already a racist man. Well, what do you want from me? You want me to go back in time and not hire the guy? Like, what am I supposed to do? That's the problem. You don't have a chance in the eyes of the left to redeem yourself if you were trying to. So there's no reason to even try to apologize in the first place, and you shouldn't, because all that does is just draw the process out longer, make it uglier, and give them the opportunity to continue to push the same narrative, but keep cranking up the tension till it becomes so unbearable that you either go into isolation or you kill yourself. Like, it's a real, it's something that really brought out the worst in a lot of people, because they're seeing racism everywhere, and they're not content with someone who is taking steps to make sure that they are taking extreme measures even to ensure that nothing like that would happen again. And lo and behold, that's not enough. There's no measure that's too extreme or enough to satiate the mob on the left. There's just none. So this idea right here, it's interesting, because once again, this is what the senators have been asking for years, and just congressmen in general, that set up your social media platform to, as an American company, to follow American speech law. Now, countries that want to use the program, if they want to alter it to conform with their country's laws, okay, fine, so be it. But in this country, with this program, it really should operate as an American company with American values, in particular around speech, since so much speech is happening on the platform, period. So that's why I love this idea, because it's exactly what people have been hoping for so long. So let's get back to it now. I had to get that out because it was such a big deal. But anyway.
The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed, so we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, while working to keep the communities friendly and positive. Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world.
This is a really good point.
Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years, when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
So, geez, I mean, you could say a million things about this. This is so interesting. I'll just try to sum up as best I can and kind of put it in a way that is going to be a little bit maybe not unanimous, but something that I think is just a good way to go about it. Because with the Trump election and his inauguration coming really soon, I remember this quote. Trump said this before several times. You're going to get tired of winning, and I got to say, I don't think I'm tired of winning, but I will say that when you are somebody who is, or a group of people even that are receiving a lot of things starting to swing your way, and it's a lot of things that you've believed were the right thing to do, or you were hoping people would recognize as being the right decision, and just it falls on deaf ears, and then suddenly it happens. I don't want to be the same way that leftists are when something happens and it's what they want, and go and gloat about it, and then just push the envelope further to just kind of like, add insult to injury or whatever you want to call it. Maybe just kicking someone in their down. I don't know. But the point is that, I know the left is going to be, I mean, it's entertaining enough watching them spaz out about just the fact that this is happening alone. And I'm not going to go around poking fun at anybody because of it, even though I would kind of like to. But the point is that, I see it as for the good of everybody being a situation where, great, this is the right decision, so let's roll with it. That's why I'm not going to get into the ideas that, well, what's the motivation for Mark Zuckerberg? Is he sincere? Like, why is he doing this? Da, da, da. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and the opportunity to put these things into place and see how it all plays out. Because when Elon took over X and the platform became open again, no matter how much leftists have kicked and screamed about this part, sorry, but 48% to 47% demographics is about as even as you're going to naturally get. And that just so happens to be the demographics on X. So the problem is that for so long it was a dominant left platform. So suddenly, because it's open to everybody, it feels like it's now catering to the other side, and that's just not the case. It's catering to both sides, the way it always should have been. It's allowing public discourse to happen as it should, and allowing people to have the discussions they want to have without somebody constantly interjecting and putting their thumb on the scale to moderate the situation and make it more favorable to their political ideology and their personal political beliefs. And it's been killing the ability for people to communicate freely online for a long time now, out of fear of losing your account or being banned from a platform, or in some cases, in the worst case scenarios, being unable to make money because, you've had if it's social media on YouTube, for example, you could lose your entire livelihood by having your ability to post content be removed. And another problem with that is the left loves that. They enjoy seeing that. They're not upset that somebody had their rights stripped from them, or their constitutional guarantee to freedom of speech taken away in the public square, and it's from a company hosting a platform. Once again, I've discussed this before, not a publisher. These aren't reflective of the company itself. These are reflective of the individual that posts them. And once again, as I was alluding to before, speech being equated to violence was one of the most absolutely devastating and damaging positions that the left took in the whole woke movement. Because if speech equals violence, then you can always shut it down by claiming that you feel hurt from this. And sorry, that's not what violence is. The violence is not something that... Now, there's tons of people in my family that have different and serious different mental disorders. Bipolar runs really bad on my mom's side. Some people in my family have serious depression. I've mentioned before, I'm doing better these days for sure, but I've been diagnosed with high anxiety and panic disorder. One day maybe I'll go into the details because I have some weird triggers for that. But I can talk about it now and kind of even laugh about it now, because it does sound kind of crazy when I talk about the things that actually make me go into that panic state where, now, believe me, having a panic attack is not, it's miserable when you're having panic attacks consistently, but that's not the fault of any individual who's speaking. That's my own, that's just my own bad luck for having this particular illness. It sucks. But, and here's where everything goes off the rails. They just, when people start catering and using that sort of, using the sort of guise of empathy to try to pretend like you're doing something good by attempting to shield this group of people with certain disabilities or impairments to participate in conversations that are making them uncomfortable or anxious or depressed or whatever, you're not helping an individual. You're just harming everyone else. What do I mean? Well, the person is going to continue to experience other aspects in life where they're going to be exposed to things that are going to trigger that illness that they have. It's inevitable. But you're trying to do it by, you're trying to fix it by removing it on a social media platform that affects every single user on the platform, rather than, encouraging people when they have serious mental conditions to seek some sort of mental health help and to actually treat the mental illnesses they have, as opposed to going straight to someone at a company and complaining and going off the rails about your condition and how, because you have that condition, it affects you more and blah, blah. That sucks. But sorry, we can't change our policy, and we certainly can't change our laws based on the fact that you have a very difficult mental disorder. I'm sorry. That's just the way it works. And like I said, I've been through a lot of periods in my life where I was in very, very, very bad spots because of how bad my panic attacks were getting, how bad my anxiety was getting. It was getting to a point where it felt unbearable. But once again, I didn't. My response was always isolation. I always that was my way of kind of dealing with it, which isn't good, but it's better than lashing out, I'd say. But then, of course, people around you start to worry. But But once again, it seems like it's similar almost to the whole body positivity movement, where it's like, oh, you're healthy at any size. No, you're not. You're not healthy at any size. And by people encouraging it in you to, stay morbidly obese, you're still gorgeous. It's so counterproductive, and they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They don't care. They're just trying to appease a short-term sort of dopamine rush for somebody who is a sort of like self-righteous person that thinks like, well, I'm never wrong. I can never be wrong. But actually, you're killing yourself. I heard this doctor one time talk about how they were, and I know this is happening all over the country, where they were encouraging doctors, you can't suggest people to begin to lose weight depending on how much their weight is, how high their cholesterol is, how high their, and they're like, well, that's part of my job. My job is to do no harm, and if I do harm by way of my silence, that's still me doing harm. And so good doctors were speaking up about it, and it's like, I can't just not ask these questions. You could be a diabetic, you could have a serious heart disease, you could have bad blood pressure, you could have all kinds of serious issues that need to be treated, but I'm not supposed to ask about it because I'm supposed to believe in this strange delusion that you're healthy at any size because I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. I'd rather hurt their feelings than allow them to continue to hurt their physical bodies. So it's just one of those things where we allowed ourselves. And that's the thing, is that a lot of people are very compassionate. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I don't know where it came from, where all of a sudden, because we've never really had as a species, really, I think. Maybe it's because of the ability to really have so much less struggle go into every activity now. Everything is so much easier to accomplish in the modern age that everybody's just accustomed to not needing to doing the least amount of work to be able to get something. And so for someone to lose weight, or just for someone to actually face their mental illnesses by doing the proper type of treatment, with I'm not somebody who's hardline against pharmaceuticals being used in treatment, because I think that once again people use worst case scenarios in the case of everything, and that's not to say that the companies are in any way blameless. No, there's a lot of things wrong with the companies, but I don't think that the concept of medication as a whole is as incredibly negative as it's been portrayed to be. I do totally agree, though, that so you only have to watch somebody who's been an athlete, especially like a physical sport athlete, all their life, and when they get into their older years and they start experiencing such extreme pain, they have no choice but to get on some sort of painkillers, and usually by then they're kind of depressed because their best years where they were performing at a high level are over, and so along with the pain medication comes the bottle, and then that's probably when it's really on the road to destruction, because it's always going to be a situation of somebody on a path that's almost guaranteed to be self-destructive when you start doing whatever kind of vice you're already doing, and then you add alcohol to the mix. It's like, oh man, now you're really going to be pushing it, because that's territory where you really need somebody needs to have an intervention or something, and bring these issues up because that's when it gets really out of hand. But my point is just that I'm not always ready to just call it just like, for example, my grandma has had like, oh man, I don't even know how many surgeries. In the last 3 years, she's had at least 6 or 7 surgeries. So, and not all of them have had success. I mean, they weren't like it wasn't like they caused life-threatening illness, but they didn't relieve any of the pain or even alleviate some of the pain. Like, they didn't even make it better. In some cases, they made the pain even worse. But she has always taken a low dose of certain types of painkillers for an extremely long period of time, yet she'll run into pharmacists that even at her age, with all of these medical issues, they want to play morality police and say, well, you really shouldn't be getting this. And it just drives me nuts. You're a pharmacist, but this is my doctor, which, by the way, with my grandma and my mom and even me to some degree, not as much for me, but for them for sure. It's the same doctor that delivered my mom. I mean, he was the doctor for my grandmother when she was giving birth to my mom. That's the same doctor that they're going to. So it's not like this is an untrustworthy guy, and it's not a guy that is going to just do this just for the sake of doing it because it's just an easy way to get somebody out the door. This is somebody that they still exchange Christmas cards with. So they've got a great relationship with him, and he wouldn't do anything that he thought she couldn't handle. And I know that for a fact. So yeah, it's like, so for a pharmacist to pop in without any knowledge of the person or their history or their doctor, just a hardline blanket statement, always say, this isn't good for you, you shouldn't be taking this much, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, you don't know this person's situation. I know the stigma around the substance, but she's been taking the same amount for years, and she's always been responsible with it. And I mean for a long, long time, she's taken the same amount. She's always been very aware of how dangerous it can be if you let it get out of control, and she's very, very responsible with it. So, you know, I can't say how it's anyone's place to not, that doesn't know her situation or doesn't know her history as far as medical procedures that's been done. You weighing in on it with something obvious about the actual medication itself isn't very helpful. But anyway, once again, I don't even know how I got off on that subject. But the point being that, because of that. So overall, with the speech thing, it's trying to protect people with issues of their own from problems that the rest of us shouldn't have to bear the burden on having to take responsibility for by self-censoring, to be able to make sure that they're comfortable in any scenario they go into. And, if you're uncomfortable, and this is another thing, and it's just beyond people, especially younger people these days, you could always just turn it off, You don't have to watch all this stuff. You don't have to be on social media all day, every day. But anyway, man, we're taking up a lot of time. So I do want to really finish up really quick, though, because there's one more thing I was going to get to. And this is just funny. And I just got to get through it because it's just kind of funny. Maybe I should. I'll go over it. So yesterday there was some swearing in of some senators. And a senator who has been sworn in before came up, and it's a woman who has a husband, and they both came up to, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, well, I won't go through the whole, geez, how long have I gone? Yeah, I was saying I wasn't going to go this long today. I didn't think I was going to have that much to say about those subjects. Do I have anything I could go into real quick? Because there's actually several clips on this one subject, and so I don't know if you know what? Here's what I could do. this could be a smaller part that could introduce the bigger part tomorrow. I think this is a good idea. Yeah. So, I know I've talked about him before. I don't know if I played a clip from him. I think I did. But if I haven't, I'm going to introduce you guys to a little, and I do mean little short fat man named Roland Martin. Potentially the biggest race baiter I've ever seen. Worse than Joy Reid. Worse than, maybe not worse than Al Sharpton, but pretty close. But this guy is a race baiter like, oh man, he's pro level race baiter. Like, this guy can find reasons to bitch and moan constantly. And one thing that's a consistent for him is bitching and moaning about his channel and his audience, and how he's not getting his appeal out there. It's like, well, first of all, you narrow your audience down to, first of all, catering. You've said before on air you only really want black people to watch your show. So there's one qualifier right there that eliminates, 83% or no, 87% of the population. So yeah, you got that. Then you also want them to kind of be in the same camp that you're in, meaning everybody's racist, white people are evil, and these are not. I'm not even using hyperbole or anything. This is really the kind of stances he has. He doesn't. Once again, is one of those people that doesn't believe that you can be racist towards white people. That's an impossibility. So, he can say all the things he wants about white people. And every black person can, apparently, according to him, because, even Obama is being oppressed by the white man. But his attitude on these things is because, once again, so you got to have that box first. You have to be black, and you have to be of this same political persuasion that believes these radical leftist things. So you're narrowing down your demographic to a very small, very, very small group of people. And that also is going to have to, by necessity, mean that all of those people are going to have to want to watch your show to be even considered a show that's going to have the appeal necessary to attract a big enough audience that you're going to appreciate, because it has to fit those categories. You're shooting yourself in the foot right off the bat, and you're so stupid you don't even recognize it. And if you're saying this because of your principles, well then you don't have the right to complain about the size of your audience. Sorry, you have to pick one or the other. But old Roland here is he's been very upset about the disrespect that's been being shown to Kamala Harris throughout the campaign, and even now during the inauguration or the January 6th certification procedures and everything. He's very angry about those sorts of things. But in this little story he's going to go into, I'll play this clip. Listen to how how proud he is in this sort of way that you can go around and disrespect people, and it's something you should talk about because of just how damn awesome you think you are that you actually did this. So yeah, here, this is roly-poly himself, Roland Martin, going into a diatribe about his little win he got here in his mind. And it's pretty stupid, but just to show you what kind of character this guy is. That's right, I made fun of him. I remember why, because he reminded me of somebody. Yeah, he reminds me of that. He's the Black DSP. So, anyway, he doesn't play video games, but he's still the Black DSP, and you'll see why as soon as I pull his picture up. But anyway, oh, that's right. It's got to be on before he. Okay, there we go. Okay, I mean, this guy just is annoying as fuck just looking at the guy, but it's just. Oh, that one wasn't played. Oh, that's right. Hold on a second. Let me fix that. So, yeah, when I was saying he's the black DSP, you know, it's obvious, you know, I got that. Yeah. So anyway, and then I was gonna say, let's get into this guy who's always got a lot of.
Black Lives Matter was founded by a bunch of fat black radical lesbians.
That's right. Yeah, let's hear about the black subjects of the day from Mr. Roland Martin here, who's gonna stand up to the man. So let's hear what he has to say. Oh, volume's off again.
I told y'all what happened when I went down to nobody. I told y'all what happened when he had a meeting with the TV anchors and I was invited to it. And they invited me to 3 of them. I made 2 of them. Biden people never invited me to 1.
Ooh, look at that.
Just saying.
Hardcore.
So Trump walks in. You know, normally when the president, I don't call him the president. The president walks in, everybody stands up, they move to him. Everybody moved to him. I like that Simpsons meme. I fell backwards. So I was standing there and I was sitting there going, I was like, well, I ain't gonna call his ass Mr. President because he ain't got no respect for the office, so I can't call him President Trump.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah.
Then I was like, I can't call his ass Mr. Trump. So I'm like, damn, what I'm gonna say when he. So he's shaking everybody's hand and he get to me and stick his hand out. Hi, good to see you. Good to see you. I went, hi.
Yo, what's up, Jay?
That was it.
You didn't even touch it.
That was it. I wasn't about to sit here and call him by no title because he didn't have any respect for the office. So I'm not gonna call you by the title of the office. I'm not gonna do it. So yeah, unlike Joe and Mika and Morning Joe, we ain't kissing no Trump ass. I ain't going to Mar-a-Lago.
No.
We ain't sitting down.
Yeah, no, we don't want your fat ass there. See, that's the difference, Roland, is that I would say the only thing he did wrong in that scenario that was maybe disgraceful was inviting your roly-poly ass to the White House. Because the fact that you were even allowed on the White House grounds is a spit in the face to every American citizen. Sorry. And when you can't have one, ounce of respect for the president, and you probably believe everything that you've heard from MSDNC and all the fucking propaganda media, unfortunately, I'm sure that means that you believe he's an insurrectionist and he's a white supremacist. And of course he believes he's a white supremacist because he's massive race hustler. But yeah, that's Roland. He's always got a gripe about somebody. And once again, it'll be interesting because it's actually kind of better if I save the rest of this for tomorrow because he very well may weigh in on this subject, and I'll talk about it then. But I'll just say there was an event that happened yesterday, and it led to a bunch of people on, of course, what other platform but TikTok, coming out, and it really made me wonder, like, what do these people do all the time? Because this is such a small, minor event, and it's in the middle of the process of swearing in all the senators. So, do they just watch these things and, like, have their magnifying glass out or something, looking for any potential aspect that could be considered act of offense or racism or something? The evil white men that are coming up, could they possibly be doing anything that would be like, I don't know how they find this stuff. It's like, first of all, I know they're hypersensitive to anything where you could even mildly call something an imbalance of power or an imbalance of some sort of quote unquote privilege or whatever the hell you want to call it. But like, to go and find some of these very obscure examples that are like just so minor. If I was watching this, I wouldn't have thought twice. I wouldn't have even thought about it for a second. But they somehow are able to find them, and they pick them out, and they put them up everywhere, and they talk about them everywhere like they're these massive events that show how terribly racist we all still are in this country. It's like, man, wow. In places around the world where there actually is still real serious racism, I bet they would be just dying for racism of this level, because what you're saying is racism here is like the most ridiculous mild form that actually probably wasn't even racist to begin with. There's many other circumstances that could have caused this event to happen, but I don't want to preview it too much. I'll just say that race baiters, of course, are going to continue to race bait, but with people like this, that's their whole career, and when you're looking for it, you're going to find it. It's just that, like everything else, if you're looking seriously for something that you're just positive exists, you don't have any real proofs, any solid proof, but you just are convinced, and you know for sure that it's definitely there. It's definitely there, just like racism is definitely happening all the time. You're going to find it for sure if that's your mindset. But if that's not something you obsess over, you won't, and you'll probably have a much better life because of it. But I don't know. I probably would be disqualified because I'm not a person of color and I don't know the struggle. Despite the fact that, I could make the argument that, my ancestors of Irish heritage got discriminated against pretty fucking hard when they came to America. But they didn't care. They had a beer and a potato, and they're like, whatever, fuck it. So, anyway, that's a great way to end the show today. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Sorry, Jay, you came in at the end, but thank you for coming. Man, I've been having a great time doing the show lately. I hope you've been stopping by to check out, because, man, it's been going really good. I've been having a great time, and man, we've had some good episodes lately. There's been a lot of stuff going on. I was gonna make a few mentions of some activity that's been going on in England lately, actually, as well, but I didn't get around to that today. So, sometime in the future, hopefully, I'll bring it up. But anyway, I'll cut it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be on tomorrow as usual. I have some things I need to do today for computer work I need to get done. I got some parts to swap out, and hopefully it won't be too big of a job, but yes, we do, man, because they buffed Claudio back, and he's a fucking beast, man. I was actually dominating online for a while, man. I was doing really good. And it wasn't that big. It wasn't for that long, but I mean, the matches I had, I was doing very well. I was surprised, but anyway, we'll cut it there. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, my name's Corey Dean. Take care of yourselves. Have a fantastic afternoon, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.
Now, I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out. What is
for credits?